On the 45th anniversary of the 3 Mile Island accident, the control room was quiet, too quiet for a night shift in a nuclear plant. At 2:14 a.m., something changed. The auxiliary feed water pump activated without any demand, its indicator glowing green on a panel that should be dark.
Rule 4. Log it, and don't touch a damn thing. He knew what came next.
At 2:31 a.m., the clock's second hand ticked past 17 minutes. Through the control room window, a figure in white coveralls walked past, a man who had no business in that corridor. Paul did not move. He did not wave. He didn't even breathe.
Just keep walking.
The man in white raised a hand in a polite wave, then vanished. Paul's hand stayed frozen over the alarm switch. The clock ticked on. Paul had worked the overnight shift for 22 years, every anniversary alone, but he hadn't always been the keeper of the unofficial rules. That burden came with a binder handed to him by a retiring operator. You copy it by hand. Never let it leave this room, the old man had said. Paul learned the rules were passed down operator to operator since 1979. The cover had no title, only a faded sticker. Night, shift, operator supplement. Do not remove from control room. Inside, the pages were crammed with handwritten rules that no NRC manual contained. 7 rules for the night shift.
7 rules. Each one came with a warning that sounded like paranoia until you saw the reasons.
Tonight, as the clock rolled past 3 a.m., Paul sat alone and read them again. The familiar handwriting less comforting than it used to be. Rule 5 read, "Do not respond to the man in white coveralls. Do not wave back. Do not call him by name."
That one had kept him alive tonight, but it was only one of 7.
The binder lay open, a pen waiting on the blank next page for whatever the next operator would need to add. He turned back to the first rule. Rule 1. Phantom indicator lights are to be ignored unless a corresponding alarm exists. A panel on the far wall had a history of flickering amber without cause, a leftover from the plant's shared wiring with the old TMI control room.
Some said it was feedback from a circuit that should have been ripped out. Others claimed it was something trying to signal from the other side.
Rule 2 was simpler. Never open the auxiliary turbine room door without a second operator visually confirming from the control room window. Paul remembered a close call, a trainee who reached for the handle alone and froze when he heard breathing on the other side.
The door was sealed after that. If you open it and something comes through, you don't get a do-over.
Rule 4. The auxiliary feed water pump may activate itself on certain dates. Do not intervene. Log the activation and continue the shift. Tonight had been one of those dates, the 28th of March, every year since 1979. Rule 5, the one he'd just obeyed, stared up at him again. The man in white coveralls was not to be acknowledged.
All 7 rules existed because operators had learned the hard way that this plant had a memory, and it didn't forgive.
2 weeks after the anniversary, Paul was training a new operator named Patrick. The leather binder sat open on the console between them.
This isn't optional reading, Patrick. Those rules are the only reason you'll survive a night shift here.
I read the NRC manual cover to cover, sir. These handwritten notes look like old campfire stories.
Then let me tell you about my first anniversary shift as the keeper of that binder.
He described the feed water pump activating at 2:14 a.m., just as the binder foretold. He logged it, waited, and nothing escalated. No alarms, no consequences.
I followed the rule to the letter, and the plant ran smooth. Next day, inspection found 0 anomalies. That's not coincidence.
But couldn't it just be a glitch? A sensor malfunction that happens to repeat on a fixed cycle?
A glitch doesn't happen on the same date, at the same minute, for 45 straight years. These rules aren't superstition. They're survival. Until you believe that, you are a liability to this crew.
Patrick nodded, but his eyes flicked to the binder with lingering doubt. The lessons were far from over.
Let me tell you about Rule 2, Patrick. The auxiliary turbine room door. In 1985, a veteran operator, 20 years on the job, opened that door for a routine check, alone. He swore he heard breathing. Slow, wet breathing, right behind the turbine casing. But the room was empty.
He was probably just hearing his own footsteps echo. Old plants have weird acoustics.
He was a 20-year man, Patrick, not a rookie. He refused to ever enter that room again.
Paul tapped the binder open to a creased page where the incident was recorded in cramped, panicked handwriting.
After that, the door was sealed. Permanent, and the rule was added. Never open it without a second set of eyes confirming from the window. Because if something comes out of that room and nobody sees it leave the control room, we might never know.
Patrick stared at the sealed door. Its warning trefoil faded, but still bright yellow under the flickering overhead light.
It's just a door.
There, the amber indicator on board 12, that's a phantom. Notice it's not tied to any alarm.
The yellow light stuttered irregularly, as if trying to form a pattern. No corresponding alarm screamed. The panel was officially dead.
That sensor runs into a wiring bundle that connects to the old TMI control room. This plant was built with shared instrumentation in the 70s.
He pulled an old black and white photo from the binder. The TMI control room during the accident. Lights blown, operators and respirators.
So it's just a short circuit from a dead panel in a sealed building. That could explain the flicker.
Then why does it only pulse in the 2 weeks around the 28th of March, and never any other time of year? Some operators think it's a residual signal from the morning of the accident, a message that never stopped trying to get through.
The amber light pulsed once, twice, then went dark. Patrick's breath caught. The timing felt deliberate.
It shouldn't feel like it's waiting for an answer.
Patrick didn't say it aloud, but the date connection was inescapable. The plant was remembering something.
The rules aren't the whole story. This binder holds accounts from every operator who saw the man. The 31st of March, 1985. Tonight I almost waved back. If Hank hadn't grabbed my arm, I would have. Hank wrote in the margin, "Never let instinct override the rule." The man waits for that.
What do you mean, he waits?
The man in white isn't just walking. He appears when an operator is new or alone. He's testing for a break in the rules.
The binder documented a pattern. Sightings peaked from the 26th of March to the 31st of March. The window of the TMI disaster.
9 operators in this binder reported seeing him. 2 almost broke. All wrote their warnings here.
If someone does wave back, what happens?
Read the rules, Patrick. They don't say what happens. They just say it's not allowed.
Patrick held the question in his throat, but the warning in Paul's silence was louder than any answer could be.
Come with me, Patrick. I want to show you exactly where the man walks.
They stopped at the thick glass window, separating the control room from the narrow access corridor.
This corridor has no exterior doors. The only entrance is through the auxiliary building, which has been sealed since 1979. Look at the blueprint, Patrick. That hallway is a dead end. 30 feet of concrete and nothing else.
There has to be a maintenance hatch or something. Nobody just appears inside a sealed corridor.
No hatches. No vents wide enough for a man. I checked the engineering prints myself 15 years ago. There is no physical way in.
The corridor beyond the glass was empty and silent, the fluorescent light flickering without any obvious cause.
He appears at 2:31 a.m. on certain dates. He walks past that window, waves, and then he's gone. And nobody can explain how.
It can't be real. It has to be a trick of the light or a prank by the night crew.
But Patrick's hands were pressed flat against the cold glass, and he didn't pull away. The corridor waited, empty and impossible, a closed loop with no exit. 2 nights before the next anniversary, Paul detoured through the maintenance wing, where a brass memorial plaque was bolted to the concrete wall.
Thomas Keller, operator, 2nd class, lost in the line of duty, the 28th of March, 1979.
The photograph showed a young man with a straightforward smile, pale blue coveralls, and the same plant logo Paul wore.
He was only 29 when it happened. 29 and already a second-class operator. That takes drive.
Paul touched the edge of the plaque, his thumb brushing the date. The dosimeter on his chest badge ticked silently.
He never came out of the auxiliary building during the accident. They declared him missing, then dead. You are still walking the loop, aren't you? Still finishing a shift that never ends.
The corridor stayed silent, but the ventilation hum seemed to drop a half octave, as if the plant itself was holding its breath.
I won't call your name, Tom, but I think I know why the rule exists.
He turned away from the plaque and walked back toward the control room, his footsteps echoing in the empty maintenance wing as the anniversary crept closer. The anniversary night arrived, without ceremony. Only the same heavy silence and the red alarm lamp pulsing on the far panel. When the clock struck 2:14, Paul was already looking at the feedwater panel, the pump activated. No demand, no alarm, just a green light where no light should be.
Rule 4. Log it. Don't even breathe near the switch.
At 2:31, the corridor window brightened with the flicker of the dead fluorescent light. A figure in white coveralls stepped into view, not just passing this time, but stopping directly in front of the glass. His face was a blur of light. No features, no expression, but the intent was clear. He waited.
He's never stopped this long before. 22 years, and this is new.
Paul's hands trembled on the console edges, but he did not wave. He did not move. The man stared for 7 seconds that stretched like hours. Then the figure stepped back, raised a hand in a slow, deliberate wave, and continued walking his loop until he vanished into the dead-end corridor. After the man vanished, Paul sat alone in the humming silence and pulled the binder closer. It was time to read the first entries. He turned past decades of warnings and found a yellowed newspaper clipping from the 29th of March, 1979, the morning after the partial meltdown. Beneath it, a handwritten note in tight, urgent script. The 2nd of April, 1979. I, Donald Snyder, watched Tom Keller walk into the auxiliary building during the accident. He never came out. The next night at 2:31 a.m., he appeared outside the control room window. He was wearing white coveralls. He waved.
45 years. That was the first sighting. The night after the accident, Tom Keller came back.
A small color photograph was clipped to the page. Tom Keller, young, smiling, in the same pale blue coveralls Paul wore.
The same face from the memorial plaque. The same man who stood at the window tonight. He never made it out. He's still on shift, still walking a loop that never ends.
Donald's entry continued lower on the page, the handwriting growing shakier. But Paul didn't read further. Not yet.
Knowing his name doesn't change the rule. It just makes it harder.
He forced his eyes lower, where Donald's pen had cut deep into the page. He is still walking the loop. He is not contaminated. He just never finished his shift. If you see him, do not call him by name. If he turns around, you take his place.
Take his place. The curse was replacement. If Tom turned, the caller would walk instead. Calling his name would free him and trap the speaker in that dead-end corridor forever. Rule 5 wasn't politeness. It was the lock on a door that could open both ways. He stared at the dark window, picturing the figure stopping, turning, then calling him in. Patrick would be alone on these nights. He had to learn the rules without ever hearing the truth.
He shut the binder and laid his palm flat on the worn cover, pressing the horror down.
He'd protect Patrick the only way he could, by making sure the rule was never broken.
The next night, Paul called Patrick to the control room an hour early for a drill.
We're drilling Rule 5 again, the most important one.
Rule 5? You drilled it last week. I memorized it.
Memorizing isn't enough. Reacting without thinking is the goal.
He walked Patrick through the scenario twice, then made him repeat it aloud, like a prayer.
There's something he's not saying. Something that makes him grip the console like that.
If you see the man in white, don't wave. Don't wave. Don't speak. Don't even think the name you might guess he has.
You know his name, don't you? And you are terrified, I'll say it.
I know a lot of things. What matters is you follow the rule, Patrick, exactly as written.
Patrick didn't press further, but the lesson stuck. Paul's hands didn't stop trembling for an hour. After Patrick left, Paul stared at the binder. The oldest pages now carried a weight that made his chest hurt.
Destroying it would end the chain. No more handoffs. No more warnings whispered across the console.
His hand found the zinc lighter. He held it over the binder's edge, the metal cold, the flame waiting.
But Tom would still walk. The corridor wouldn't empty just because the paper burned. The binder wasn't a curse. It was an instruction manual for survival. Without it, Patrick would face the man blind.
He set the lighter down. Then, he uncapped the pen and turned to the final blank page. He wrote, "Rule 5 is inviolable. Never speak the name. Pass this warning intact to the next operator." He dated it, signed it, and sat back. The page held his voice, joining decades of others.
The burden would shift to Patrick soon, but not the truth, only the warning.
He closed the binder. The plant hummed unchanged, its loop continuing. Months later, with retirement 2 weeks away, Paul sat in the control room for one of the last times, the binder before him. He turned to the blank page after his earlier warning, the pen uncapped and waiting.
22 years of night shifts, 22 anniversaries, and one ghost I never spoke to. This was my part to leave.
He wrote slowly, pressing each letter into the page. Tom still walks. Do not call his name. Train the next one. He added his name, the year, and closed his eyes for a moment.
The binder now had my voice permanently. Hopefully it would be enough.
He closed the cover and laid the retirement watch beside it, the glass catching the amber panel light.
Patrick still didn't know the truth, but he'd been trained, and that training would have to carry him.
The plant hummed its eternal note, indifferent to the weight of decades in one man's hands. Tomorrow, the binder would change hands. Tonight, Paul sat alone in the amber glow, watching the red lamp pulse its steady warning. It was Paul's last night shift. The binder sat on the console like an old friend, its pages full of decades. At 2:31, exactly. The corridor light flickered to life, and the figure in white coveralls was there again. The man raised his hand in a slow wave, his face a blur of light, his posture almost patient.
My last night, and he knows it. 22 years, and my hands still shake every time.
Paul kept his hands flat against his thighs. Seconds passed like poured glass. The figure, waiting.
Goodbye, Tom. I won't be the one to break the chain.
Then, as slowly as it had come, the hand lowered, and the white shape retreated, melting into the dead end. Paul didn't move until the window was dark again. Then he turned to the binder, running his fingers over the worn spine. Tomorrow, Patrick's turn. Tonight, he had kept his word to Donald Snyder. The rule held. The morning turnover was quiet. Paul stood by the console, the binder in his hands, waiting for Patrick.
This is yours now. Copy it by hand. Never let it leave this room. Whatever happens, trust the words inside. And Patrick, never call him by name, no matter how familiar he seems. Not ever.
I understand, Paul. I won't forget.
Patrick took the binder and pressed it to his chest, the weight of decades settling in his arms. Paul glanced once at the window, at the empty corridor, then walked toward the door. He didn't look back. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Patrick stood alone in the control room, the binder open in his hands. He turned to the most recent pages. Paul's handwriting was steady, the final lines underlined. Tom still walks. Do not call his name. Train the next one. Patrick's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak the question forming in his throat. Paul crossed the parking lot without looking back, his duffel bag pulling at his shoulder. He slid into the sedan, the plant's floodlights turning his windshield into a mirror of amber and shadow. On the dashboard, A retirement certificate caught the street lamp. Paul, 22 years of safe operation.
22 years. Tom's still walking, and I'm driving home like a man with a clean conscience.
His knuckles tightened on the wheel, the leather groaning under his grip. The plant's cooling towers receded in the side mirror, their red warning lights pulsing in rhythm with the clock he'd left behind. He swung the car onto the highway, and the plant dissolved into a glow on the horizon.
You'll be fine, kid.
But his jaw was tight, and he didn't check the clock. The red lamp in the control room kept pulsing, waiting for the moment the binder would need its next entry. That night, Patrick sat alone in the control room, the binder open on the console beside him, the red lamp pulsing. He checked the feed water pump panel twice. No activation, no green light, not an anniversary. His shoulders eased. Then the clock struck 2:31, and the corridor's fluorescent lamp flickered on weakly. Through the window, the man in white coveralls passed slowly, then stopped, raising a hand in a careful wave.
No, he said it wouldn't appear unless it was an anniversary.
The faceless figure waved once, then again, patient and deliberate. Patrick's hand hovered over the alarm panel, trembling. His breath came in shallow gasps.
Don't wave back. Don't call him by name. Paul's voice was still in his skull.
The man's hand raised higher, as if beckoning. The blurred face tilted toward the glass. Patrick's reflection stared back at him, pale and small between the glowing panels. He did not move.
If I wave back, if I even look up, Paul said it would be the last thing I ever did.
His right hand lifted slightly, an automatic reflex. Then he slammed it flat onto the console. Instead of waving, he pressed the log acknowledgement button, hard, as if the click was his only defense. The man in the corridor paused, his hand still raised, the white coverall somehow cleaner under the failing light.
Keep walking, please, just keep walking.
The figure's hand lowered slowly, and it turned, stepping away, dissolving into the dark far end of the sealed corridor. The fluorescent light went dead, leaving only the glow of the control panels behind the glass. Patrick exhaled, his whole body shuddering as he slumped into the operator's chair. The binder lay beside him, still open.
I didn't wave. I didn't speak. The rule held.
Outside the window, the corridor remained empty, a dead end that still held its eternal watchman somewhere out of sight. In a dark living room, miles away, Paul couldn't sleep. The clock read 2:45 a.m.
Patrick is alone in the control room right now. If the man appeared.
He walked to the window. The plant's amber glow was a distant smear on the night horizon.
You made it, Patrick. I know you didn't call his name.
The cooling towers breathed their eternal steam, indifferent to the weight one man had carried. In the control room, the binder lay open beside the console, Paul's handwriting still fresh on the page. The red lamp pulsed. The chain was secure.
Sleep, Patrick. You held the line.
He turned from the window, leaving the plant to its silent hum, the shadow of a man in a hard hat. Still on the control room floor, the binder waited, as it had since 1979, for the next operator to take up the pen. The binder never left the control room. For 45 years, every operator who took the night shift learned the 7 rules not from the NRC manual, but from the handwritten pages passed across the console. The chain was never broken. Donald Snyder became Paul. Paul became Patrick, and someday Patrick would hand the binder to another young operator and whisper the same warning. The pages held not just rules, but the fear and resolve of every man and woman who sat alone through the small hours, refusing to fail Tom Keller. And Tom Keller still walked. He would never finish his shift, but as long as no one called his name, he would remain a silent wanderer in a sealed corridor that was never truly empty. At 2:31 a.m. on certain nights, the fluorescent light still flickered, and a figure in white would raise its hand in a polite wave that must never be returned. The plant hummed on, indifferent and eternal, its cooling towers casting steam into the Pennsylvania night. The shadow of a man in a hard hat still fell across the control room floor, cast by a lamp that never dimmed. There were 7 strange rules at night, and they had been kept since 1979, not by protocol but by the stubborn faithfulness of operators who understood one truth: the NRC manual can't protect you from what walks the night shift. The binder will open again. It always does.